passenger side front. And you can see this window switch fell down into there. This has screw holes connected to this, and the switch screws up under. And I don't know if it broke off or just came unloose or what. All of this works. I was testing it yesterday, but I couldn't get in there to test that. So I'm going to have to pop this off. But we're replacing this whole plastic piece. So I think there's broken pieces because you can see that's an issue right there. And you can also see how these switches screw in to the board. And what happens is those things strip out and they break where it screws into. Now you can see right here, this piece broke. So I'm hoping the piece on it's probably not, because it's doing the same thing. So this piece here must be notorious for breaking. So you can see there's nothing to screw it into and get it tight. So I'm going to have to figure out that. I may just junk all these switches right here and just put this whole piece in. You can also see it doesn't match. This one's a lighter kind of fake paneling kind of thing. And it's a whole different kind of, pattern and design on there. But I actually like the lighter one better than the darker one. So at first I was thinking about staining this, and then maybe clear coating over. But then I started realizing that one over there isn't in very good shape either. So why not go back to the junkyard and get that one too? And I mean, it won't match with that, but I still think it'll look pretty good. Or I could just paint them black. And it's good to know how to take these off before you just start prying under and stuff like somebody did here. So if you look at this one, you got 3 prongs right here, and they just push down into little clips, like you can see how this clip came off with this new one. So they just push down into 3 holes, but before you do that, these prongs that extend here go up under there. So it goes in like this and pushes up in, and then when you get it to the front pushes down in there. So what you have to do is pull up on this part right here and get those free, and then the whole board should slide out. This is the window switch, and it just appears to be shut. When you go to cut these wires, try to make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of wire to work with. You don't want to run out of wire to the point where the switch doesn't reach up to the board. And once the wires are cut, now we're going to go ahead and strip them just about, not even probably a ½ inch from the end. And once we do that, we're going to go ahead and add the connectors, and then we're going to strip the wires on the new switches and connect them up. I went back to the junkyard to get the other switch panel for the driver's side. And that one was in even worse shape than mine, so I just left it there. But I did take it apart. And it seems all Lincoln Town cars from the early 90s have the same issue with this seat adjuster switch. And I think part of the reason is just because they are heavy and kind of awkward and off balance. But people press down on these and they break the same thing every time. So I'm going to give you a better look at that and show you how to fix it in a second. Here's your switch and panel right here, and where it screws into is fine, but the loop going from the actual switch back to here is what's broken. So there's a loop right here to hold that down, and it should look something like this one. And what happens is people push down on these and they do this number right there. And what happens then is that causes that back screw to go sideways, and that cracks the housing where the screw screws into, as you can see right here. So you can see that half the housing is broken right off, and that screw's never going to get tight right there. So you're definitely dealing with a factory defect. These are just too cheap. They're just thin, cheap pieces of plastic. And just because we're here, I want to mention that don't put super glue or any kind of glue on these screws to hold them down tighter. It'll look good and it'll hold for a while, but what happens is in the winter and the summer, this plastic is going to expand and contract, but the screw is going to stay in place, and it's going to wind up cracking that housing. Also, while we're here, when you screw these screws in, you have to make sure they go in absolutely straight and perfect. If they go a little bit sideways, and you just figure, you can tighten it and make your own threads when you screw it down, that's not what happens. The threads don't give. What gives is this housing on the outside of the threads. And when that cracks, you're never going to get this screw tight, and you're going to have the same problem. So when you tighten these down, before you grab a screwdriver, you should be able to tighten these all the way down to the head of the screw with your fingers. And then when the screw head's all the way down, just give it a little bit more of a tighten with the screwdriver. Don't go too much, you will crack this. So how do you fix this if this is your issue, which apparently is very common? If this end screw hole in this housing is okay, so you can still use that back screw and this part is okay, and this is your only problem, that broken piece, and that is okay, you can take yourself a piece of metal that's, I don't know, what is that, 1 millimeter thick, maybe 1.5 millimeters thick, and cut it right about here. And then just drill a hole at this end here for the screw to hold down that switch. And basically what you're doing is bridging both switches and shoulder hopping on one screw. So let me show you the one I created, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm saying here. So when you screw that down into that hole, that also holds the front, I guess. Yeah, the front of that switch right there. And you also might have to trim off that corner right there so it goes down flush with the armrest. But you can get as creative as you want with this, and you can actually make a piece to wrap around the entire switch and it'll never come down. But this will work the way it is right here that you see. You can even glue it down onto that switch, but that's a bit permanent, and I don't know how permanent you want to be here. So now when your passenger goes to adjust their seat, everything is stiff and fine and nothing's going to slip or fall out on you. So, what do you think? You like the light one or the dark one? Lincoln themselves, they went back and forth on this from the early 90s to the mid 90s. One year they would be light wood, and the next year they'd be dark wood, and then light wood, and then dark wood. And I've made a decision here to go with light throughout the whole thing, and I'm going to buy them brand new. And I'm going to buy the one that I just replaced, just because I'm convinced that this light wood looks a lot better to me. That's just a personal opinion. You might like the dark wood, and that's cool too. But I'm going to find an aftermarket seller, somebody who manufactures these, and buy them brand new, because the ones you're going to get at the junkyards, they're going to be beat up, and the chrome's going to be peeling off it. And you can clean them up and paint them, but I really like the dark wood and the way it looks. And I'm talking about the dash panel, both door switch panels, and both of those handle panels. And I think the interior of the car will look 100 times better, and I won't have to worry about this anymore. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I make these videos to help people out and to teach people who are in the process of restoring a car that you can do this. It's, you just rip it down to the basics and just think about things that you're doing, and you can handle it. So I hope I achieved my goal here. I'm not really sure, but that's what it's all about. Peace, guys.